kind of worked for me this time. Okay, so what we're gonna do now, we are going to look at our one together. And we're only gonna do a little bit of it. We've had all day of school. And we're gonna start with our preview. And this one's for you. That one's for me. Okay, so we're gonna start now. We're gonna do this one together. And our goal here is to, we're gonna engage in the article with a preview. And we're gonna either, you can write it on sticky notes, or we're gonna write it on the text. We're gonna do our inner questioning, inner previewing. And then we're gonna need to identify which type of text structure it is, and then kind of which brain frame do you think we would want to use on that, okay? All right, I'm gonna let you start, and then I'll jump in, okay? And I'll let you take the lead.
Do you want me to read out loud here?
Yeah, you talk to me,
Okay.
how I just talked to you.
I'm gonna underline Declaration because it reminds me of the Declaration of Independence.
Excellent. Well, that makes sense. Okay.
It was in 2017. Right here, it says former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. So I'm assuming that this is her.
Good, yeah. You know, I'm gonna add something to that because I think back to the Roosevelts and the fact that her husband was our president in World War II, who fought against the Axis powers, the Nazis.
Right here is the preamble.
I've heard that word before. Where have you heard that word?
I heard it in, no, we talked about it, 6th grade. I
Yeah,
heard it in middle school too.
middle school. What did we study in middle school? What was 7th grade and 8th grade? U.S. history?
Yeah.
So it's connected maybe to the Constitution. Does the Constitution have a preamble? Yeah.
Oh.
What do you think they mean by articles?
Oh, this, I can't remember what it's from, but the Articles of Independence, right? No.
Articles of Confederation?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember what they were, did you?
No, not really.
I know the word Confederation, though. That Confederates. Who
From
were
the
they?
South?
Yes. From South. Interesting. And here's, if you wanna, if this helps you too, that's anytime you need to look back, but you're doing a really good job, Money. Excellent job. So just more articles here. You know what this kind of reminds me of? These articles also reminds me of the Bill of Rights. How many Bill? You remember studying those? Yeah, it reminds me of the Bill of Rights. I wonder how they're different. Do you have any questions so far about like this that you can think about? We can use these question stems if we needed to.
I wonder why they have all of them in here, all the articles.
Yeah, it's a lot to read, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to keep your focus, isn't it, with so many articles? Yeah. I wonder if they're important.
Yeah.
You think they're probably important? Because
Went to human rights.
yeah. I wonder why this author wrote this. Who is the author of this one? An editor here. Oh, who is the author?
United Nations.
Yeah.
And I seen that word earlier.
You saw it earlier?
Right here.
Yeah. Good memory. You're a very visual learner. People's United Nations. Rights. So these must be, I wonder if the United Nations, I'm wondering who is in it. Who is it? Okay, so how about you and how about I'll read a little, you read a little, and then while we're reading, we'll both agree to make some questions.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to, if you get stuck, these are the questions you can ask. I also have, where did I put that? These question stems too. If you just know if you need some help coming back to those, I'll start. Primary sources. Oh, Money, we missed that. Primary sources. What does that mean? Do you think?
So when it was like evidence like of people either being there
Yeah,
or
it's credible, right?
yeah.
That's the most credible source we have. Primary sources, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Editor's note, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is a declaration adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on December 10th of 1948. I wonder if this is connected to World War II. I know World War II ended in 1945. It was written shortly after World War II. Ah, there we go. The atrocities. What do they mean by the word atrocities? I don't know what that word means. Committed by Nazi Germany during the Holocaust shocked the world. It pushed countries to develop a set of standards and protections on how to treat their fellow humans. The Universal Declaration is a statement, not a treaty. Well, what is that?
Statement, not a treaty.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's not a treaty, then do all countries agree? It is not law. So how is it enforced? If it's not law, how's it enforced? Because I think about, like, even in school, sometimes you have teachers that say, okay, this is an expectation, and they don't enforce it. What happens?
Because everything goes out of the way.
Yeah, it goes all the way. However, it has influenced laws passed in all countries around the world. One of the conventions on the rights of the child. It declares that human rights are given to all people, no matter who they are or where they live. The Universal Declaration includes the right to life, liberty, free speech, religion, privacy, health, and education. Well, geez, a question I have right now is, how do dictatorships justify themselves? I wonder if that's why their leaders lie and have fake elections. All right, you're up.
Fundamental rights of all members of the human family are the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Hatred of human rights has resulted in I don't know this word.
I don't either.
barbarous acts
Yeah, I don't know that one either.
which have outraged the conscience of mankind. These events have brought us to a world in which all human beings now want to enjoy freedom of speech and belief and from fear and want.
How does that relate to the world? Could you make a question on how that relates to the world right there? What about, particularly thinking about this one, bud? Can you make a question about freedom of speech and how what we read relates to the world?
Mm, it's not really technically freedom of speech in the world.
Right. Do you know a place where there is no freedom of speech?
And they don't have freedom of speech in North Korea, do they?
No, they don't. Excellent. So, what would be a question we could ask about that? Is this like North Korea? Do you remember that from my class? Could recall. You're a fast reader. Did someone tell you along the way that reading fast is what's good? No?
I always thought I read slow.
Sometimes you read fast.
You want me to keep going?
Yeah, you keep going. You're doing great.
Human rights should be protected by the rule of law so man is not forced to rebel against oppression to tyranny.
I need to look up tyranny. I'm not sure.
I've heard it before.
You've heard it?
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of describe it to me? Because I'm not sure.
I think we both need to look it up because I've only heard it.
A couple times. Okay.
Yeah. It is essential to promote the development of friendly relations between nations. The people of United Nations have, in their charter, stated their faith in fundamental human rights and the dignity of the work and worth of speech, of person, and equal rights of men and women. The peoples of the United Nations are determined to promote social progress and better standards of life.
Do you have a question that you could make about standards of life?
Yeah, what are the standards of life?
Good. A question I'm going to have about that is how do they differ? Because our standard of life in the United States is very different than the standard of life in Syria or Iraq. Do you know of any countries right now where there's a lot of human suffering? Lots of Africa, right? Mm-hmm. Lots of poverty there, lots of Asian countries, Afghanistan. So, whose standard is it at, is my question. Okay, you can keep going, you're doing great.
Member states have pledged themselves to achieve in cooperation with the United Nations universal respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. Now therefore, the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It is a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations. Every individual and every part of society should follow this declaration. It shall teach respect for these rights and freedoms throughout the world. The peoples of member states and among the peoples of territories they control will recognize and observe these universal human rights.
Can you create a question out of this? And if you need something, you can look at these, or you can look at these. So, really what it is I know you're working really hard to decode and pronounce really well, and you're doing a great job with that. But where the next step that I want you to get to is as you're reading that, you got to think about your thinking. As you're reading, what questions are in the back of your brain that are coming up as you're reading that? Can you make a question out of that paragraph for me? Think about what you know about the world. How could you connect it?
every part of society should follow this declaration.
I agree with you there. Who is everyone? Great question. Okay. So if we were going to map this out, for time's sake, I'm gonna let us keep, move to the next piece here, buddy. So if we were to do this, what would be, what type of, we'd go back, right? We'd map our ideas out using a frame. So which one do you think we would use when we did this? Oh, this, yeah, we do, yep.
Like these two?
Well, these are our choices here, so we gotta go back and let's look at this again and decide, you know, what is this article doing? Is it a description? Is it cause and effect? Is it problem and solution?
Well, from the list, it seems like a description.
You're right. So for us in this one, it would be probably a telling frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you go ahead and put, just put universal human rights, so put H or UHR in the center. And then if we had to tell, we'd have to go back and pull some information from that. What could we pull? So this is, when you know you have a square, and I know I haven't really taught you this in detail, but I'm gonna start teaching it to you a little bit. That's the root, or that's the topic, and your ideas are always in circles.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something to do with the brain, the way the brain takes it in. So I gotta use the restroom real quick, but if you wanna go back through and look at what we wrote down, and come up with some of what we know already about this from reading it through in our questions, what questions we have and what we know already. I'll be right back. Good job, bud. Is that really starting to help you, that strategy?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna move a little bit further ahead. You okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna have you do this on your own. You won't do the whole thing, we'll do a good portion of it, okay? And I'm gonna have you make some predictions. And let's have you make your predictions, and on the, no, let's just do this. I'll have you just write up on the text how we did here. I wanna see some predictions and I wanna see some questions. And then what we'll do, we'll take it, we'll decide after you read it or read a portion of it, we will then decide you'll decide which text structure and then how you're gonna get your information down, okay? All right, so when you mark that text, that shows me your thinking, okay? And you can use these too if you want those. And I'll leave these question stems for you. That helps as a support if you get stuck. You know, here's some question stems, predicting as well, okay? All right, buddy boy. Remember, taking your time and previewing the whole article first, and then you can go back and read it. Good job. Okay, so one thing I wanna see, can you tell me what were the questions you had before your text, while you were reading it, and what questions do you have after?
Oh, wait, I was supposed to read.
That's okay, you just previewed?
Yeah,
Okay, so now you're gonna read.
okay.
Perfect. So now if you wanna use stickies, you can, but what are the questions you have before you read, after your preview? That's a great time to put them down. And then you can read it, and then you wanna gather a couple questions while you're reading it, and then afterwards, what questions do you have? Okay?
Mhm.
All right.